Ross Atkins has been in charge of the Toronto Blue Jays for a very long time, and he doesn't have much success to show for it. Now, in a guy who seemed invincible ever since coming over to the Jays and being the right-hand man of Mark Shapiro, his job is definitely on the line if the Toronto Blue Jays fail to make the playoffs, and all signs are pointing towards them not being able to get over the hump and not being able to play into October. So, is Ross Atkins' job on the line? A lot of fans are hoping that it is, and I'm one of those fans, so let's break that down and much more in this episode of Jay's Digest. Welcome in everybody to Jay's Digest. I'm your host Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Still sorting some things out here with the setup. Nick is still on the cruise. Well deserved, my man. Well deserved. You work very hard and you deserve this vacation, but want you to get back because I don't like these technical issues that are going on here. But we're bear with us. We apologize for the inconveniences. But Nick, a report dropped just a couple of days ago highlighting that Ross Atkins, his job could be on the line if the Blue Jays fail to make the playoffs. And last time I checked, they're in the 1% range of actually being able to make it into the playoffs. An absolute miracle needs to happen. To say it lightly, a miracle needs to happen for the Blue Jays to be playing meaningful baseball in October. And I just don't think that the season has any way of turning itself around. We've seen some bright spots out of Spencer Horwitz, and Vladdy seems to have regained his power hitting stroke, but Nick, beyond that, we haven't really seen much to get excited about. The bullpen has been horrendous. The starting pitching has been up and down pretty much all season long. And, the Jays are just not in a very good position right now. And we're looking at the AL East. The Yankees are very good, even though they haven't been playing great baseball as of late. The Orioles are going to be great for a long time. And the Boston Red Sox, the team that everybody picked to finish last in the American League East this season, they're surprising a lot of people, and they're just 3.5 games back of the Yankees as we speak right now. So it's a very competitive division. It's going to remain competitive for years to come. And Ross Atkins just has to figure something out here, or else his job is going to be no longer available to him.
Yeah, a lot of Jays fans might be happy with this report we're going to discuss today because it's involving Ross Atkins getting let go. And yeah, bear with the quality while I'm on the cruise. I'm back in a couple days, but let's just dive right into it. So, Peter, it initially started from Bob Nightingale. You can see here, baseball executives are starting to believe that Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins, Padres GM AJ Preller, and the Giants president as well, all may have to make the playoffs this season to assure that they keep their jobs. Atkins appears to be in the most danger. So Bob Nightingale comes out and basically reveals that Atkins' job among all other front office members and of all these GMs of all these other teams, Atkins is the one who is at the most risk to lose their job. Now, Peter, this is a little bit not really surprising because it's really how it should be, but this is interesting stuff, and this is obviously a good report, and people really jumped over it. Atkins' fate all but determined for Jays. The trade deadline nears, and of course we'll get into it, but the trade deadline is happening very, very soon, in a couple of weeks here, July 30th. This is probably going to be Ross Atkins' last, GM trade deadline on the Toronto Blue Jays, and as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays, if they fail to make the playoffs this year.
Well, it should be, and we've been waiting for a long time for this to happen. Like he's had his fingerprints all over this roster. This is a Ross Atkins team through and through, and he's decided to make the changes and go with run prevention and swap out hitting for defense. And it's backfired significantly. Like the Blue Jays team OPS is under 700. It's 688 for the year or something like that last time I checked, which is their lowest since the 1980s when they were a really bad ball club. Their team ERA, it's in the high fours. That's a really bad number, and that's eclipsing some of their worst seasons in franchise history as well. So nothing has gone right for this Blue Jays team this year, and Ross Atkins is the one to blame. You could blame John Schneider all you want. You could blame his in-game decision making, but the truth is this roster is not good enough to compete. And uh, Atkins came into a very favorable situation in 2016. Like the Blue Jays had just made the ALCS. They were right there. They were right on the cusp of playing in a World Series. Had it not been for a couple of bad calls or a few breaks that didn't go their way. And what did they do? I mean, yeah, okay, they made the ALCS again, but then it was blow up time. It was time for everybody to be shown the door. Donaldson, they didn't get enough in return for one of the premier players in baseball still at the time. Jose Bautista kind of over the hill, didn't have a great season. Edwin Encarnacion just went to the Cleveland Guardians the next season. So they made a lot of changes the minute that they got their hands on this roster. I'm talking about Shapiro and Atkins, and they've just failed to deliver ever since. I mean, 2021, I'll stand by this. I think that was their best chance to win a World Series with this current core of players. And then what do? They let their arguably their most valuable player in Marcus Semien just walk. And that's not smart because he's still one of the more consistent players in baseball. Even though he hasn't been great this year, you know that he's going to be in the lineup every day. And he's one of the premier second basemen in baseball. So they've decided to make all these changes. They've decided to go in different directions. And for that reason, I don't know how much involvement Mark Shapiro has on actual baseball decisions. I tend to think that he does have quite a bit of influence, but this is Ross Atkins' team, and this is all his fault right here. This is the roster that he put together, and they're not performing, and he keeps saying internal growth. He keeps pointing towards things that we haven't seen any signs of happening in the past couple of years. And that's just a GM to me that has lost his way and just is getting overmatched by other executives around the league.
Yeah, and there's some other executives here that also are on the way out, most likely. But the fact that Ross is the most in danger obviously makes sense, but it's also very surprising considering where they were just a few years ago. And this article basically highlights that nothing could rescue Jays GM Ross Atkins from ultimate fate because, of course, per Nightingale, they have to make the playoffs, which is honestly coming into the year should have been not really even a bar. That should have been the lowest possible standard for this team. They've made the playoffs back to back years and really since 2020 and haven't won a playoff series and they even haven't won a playoff game. And now the fact that they're not even going to make the playoffs puts him not only in most danger, but he's probably going to be let go at the end of the year, assuming they miss the playoffs. And Peter, you look at the schedule ahead, obviously the trade deadline is approaching. I mean, unless they go on some crazy 10-0 run, they could go on a 10-0 run and still probably be 5 games out of a wild card spot, depending how the other teams play. It's at a point where, I mean, they got a good win against the Diamondbacks, but time is ticking, and it's a little bit concerning to see what Ross Atkins is going to do with this trade deadline. Because if it's his last year, do you want him making all the decisions? It is going to be him. They're going to let him, I guess, go down with the ship, at least in his proverbial ship, before he gets let go. But it's that time now, and I guess they have to win games, but it might be too late, too little, too late. I think for at least this year of the Blue Jays.
I understand the concerns of the fans of having Ross Atkins make these franchise altering moves before he's shown the door. I totally understand that. But right now, Shapiro has made this decision and he's kept Ross Atkins for way too long. He should have been let go after last year's debacle. I mean, the Blue Jays failed to deliver. They had a favorable matchup in the wild card series against the Minnesota Twins. And I know the Twins have some decent pitching and some okay power, but they should have been able to handle themselves a little bit better in that. And I would have even gone as far as to say that he should have been let go after the Seattle debacle. Now, whether you want to pin that on John Schneider for his decision making and putting guys in spots where they shouldn't have been inserted in, I mean, that's up to you. But he was the one that had built that roster, and he was the one that built the roster even more so the year where they lost to the Twins last season. So he's had every chance to make good by the fans and to put a contending ball club on the field because there are some good pieces on this team. But what has he done? He's made the team worse and he's made the farm system worse as the years have rolled along. So he's just had his fingerprints all over this thing, and it's all his fault. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I don't know how else to decipher the blame here. This is all on Ross Atkins, in my opinion, and I don't want him making the moves that are going to decide the short-term and long-term future of the Blue Jays. But now they have no choice. It's too late to replace an executive unless Mark Shapiro takes on that task himself, which I don't know if I'd be too keen on if I was a Blue Jay fan either. So yeah, they've had every chance to be good in the past couple of years. They were put into a pretty favorable spot when they came over and took over the Toronto Blue Jays, but it's been failure ever since. And I mean, yeah, something's got to change here. They got to let go of him as soon as the season ends. I think that's priority number one for Mark Chaparro.
Yeah, and obviously some of the players underperformed, which you can put some of the blame on them, but Ross Atkins is ultimately the one that led this team to where they are right now. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. Do you want to see Ross Atkins gone now, or do you want to see him stay for a little bit, or do you want to see him gone before the trade deadline, before they make what's going to be a very, very busy deadline for Blue Jays on July 30th? That'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching.